Hello, everybody. I'm Maroof Raza, and it is only appropriate that I launch my series of long format interviews with General VP Malik, the former army chief and the architect of our great operational success in Kargil. And this is the 25th year of our victory in Kargil. And General Malik must get a lot of credit, apart from the braves who fought and died there. As his book rightly says, that such great deeds often go unnoticed. So it is clearly time for us to give it recognition. And I have great pleasure in introducing General VP Malik, formerly Chief of the Indian Army, and also having had a distinguished career all through in the army, because unlike in other fields, you don't come in from nowhere and become the head of an organization, but you actually go up every step having to prove yourself. And I think the greatest challenge to him came in the Kargil conflict, where he had to quite really prove himself in more ways than one, not just leadership, it was planning, it was foresight, and it was everything that goes into being an able war commander. I've written about it earlier, but sadly, this country did not give him more recognition than a nominal award. I think he should have been given greater recognition for having turned the tide in a battle which, in the initial stages, as I remember General Malik himself confiding in me in Army House, that it was such a challenge that it led to a lot of people being completely out of their depth, that how do we deal with Musharraf's surprise action. So I start with my first question, sir. It was a surprise. The title of your book, which I've read many times over, has also very clearly said from surprise to victory. But how is it, and this is a question that people have often asked in our country, more so during the days of the Kargil conflict, that why were we so badly surprised?
Um, Thank you, Maroof. It's always a pleasure to interact with you. Yes, it came as a surprise because just a few months earlier, uh, our prime ministers of India and Pakistan, had signed Lahore Declaration, declaring that we shall resolve our problems without getting into a conflict. And everybody was very happy that hereafter we will have peace between India and Pakistan. But what people did not realize, not even the Pakistani political establishment, that their own army chief was already set to create problems for everybody in the region. And he had already started carrying out recce to launch his troops into Kashmir, into Kargil sector, and annex certain areas so that he could influence, he could dominate the road going from Srinagar to Kargil and beyond. And so it came as a big surprise. There were no intelligence reports at all. In fact, the intelligence reports indicated that Pakistan was not prepared for a war situation. And there were a few reports about jihadi, but ultimately, as everybody knows now, there were no jihadis in that operation. In fact, the forward troops which came from Pakistan army, they were wearing salwar kameez. So everybody took them to be jihadis. And they also carried out deception on the radio network of people speaking in Baltis and other languages, giving an impression that the jihadis had launched that operation. So it was a big surprise that way.
Sir, you've touched on a lot of important aspects. Let me go over it one by one. I remember after my first conversation with you, when I gave a commitment that the finer details of what you told me will never be made public. But the conversation led me to say in an NDTV debate that these weren't militants, these weren't jihadis. We were looking at a conflict where we would have to deploy thousands of our soldiers in a conflict which could last for months, if not years. And therefore, even the anchors, I don't want to name them, they were totally caught by surprise. They told me in the break that, you have made this great, strong assertion on national television. Are you sure what you're saying? And I came out of the show, and immediately a very famous senior lady journalist who no more rang me up and said, you're the first guy who's spoken sense, because everyone's going on and on about militants and that this is just a false alarm action, etc. And Christine Fair alludes to this in her book on the Pakistan Army, amongst other people, in which she said that this argument that it was an action orchestrated by militants was something that was fed by Musharraf and his team to the Pakistani press, academia, and others. And a lot of people bought it hook, line, and sinker, even in South Block. So, yes, it took people by surprise. Secondly, it kept being said it's an intelligence failure, and people tried to point fingers at you. And I was one of the few who was arguing that, you see, it's not the job of the army to do cross-border surveillance. There are other agencies in place. Their job is to find all this information and not for us to wait for a shepherd to tell us that intruders have come in. So that was the second point. The third point was that you had mentioned that we were basically looking at a scenario where there was no expectation that Pakistan would betray. Now, these plans for a Kargil-like operation were in Pakistan's books, textbooks of the MO and other operational directorates, which was shot down initially by General Zia and then Benazir Bhutto, who both thought it was too adventurous and dangerous. But Musharraf went ahead with it. The pity is, and your book again alludes to that we gave him so quickly after the disastrous operation of Pakistan respectability by inviting him and giving him head of state treatment and all that. And Musharraf, like a cock on the walk, had a very arrogant approach that, see, I've done it, I've taught you guys this, and India even acknowledged my military acumen. But obviously, that's all fallen through. Now, the issue is that why is it, and I make this strong assertion, and you've been very kind to the intelligence agencies in your book, but why is it that since independence, we failed to interpret Pakistan's intentions correctly on more occasions than one? 47, 48, we never thought what's going to happen till Pandit Nehru gave quite a piece of his mind to Sardar Baldev Singh, the defense minister. In 65, again, we weren't very clear. 71, we are blamed by Pakistan for having let them down, but the signs on the wall were there for many months before we decided to take corrective action. And so with Kargil. Now, why is it that we do not get enough support and synergy, a word you often have used, between the armed forces and the intelligence agencies in sharing, collaborating, and coming about with an assessment based on information where there's writing on the wall? Why is it there is such a disconnect?
It's a very valid question that you are asking now. Unfortunately, I am not from the intelligence agencies. All I can see is what I see on the ground and my impressions therefrom. Uh, I think there has been lack of coordination. During the Kargil War, I came across the fact that the Joint Intelligence Committee was not meeting regularly. And also, because they did not have adequate information about the military setup in Pakistan, and they kept harping on the jihadis, and all that has been proved wrong today, not only by us in different Kargil Review Committee report and some books written by people from Prime Minister's office itself, and the Pakistani journalists, etc. But whenever there is lack of coordination amongst the agencies, and sometimes when they wish to please the political bosses, these kind of errors have been occurring. All I will say is that yes, there is a requirement to always be sure of the information or intelligence that is being given to the armed forces, because the armed forces have to make their plans accordingly. And hopefully, that now that we have got an NSA who's from the intelligence services himself, hopefully that these things are now in a better frame than they were during Kargil war time.
Yeah, but the NSA being from an intelligence background has been a great advantage to our various institutions, but also the fact that intelligence people, by their nature of training, are secretive.
Yeah.
And because they are secretive, only need to know basis of information is shared, even within our own four walls. And that, I believe, that's my view, that slows down the preparation period for any eventuality. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, you are correct. Uh, and also, you know, there is always this tendency to give first information to the political authority and not to the people who have to act on the ground. And actionable intelligence is not available at the ground level. So that happens, and it happens quite often. It continues to happen, in fact. So there is a certain amount of one-upmanship, in all these agencies that we have got.
As if I may intervene, sir, as it happened in the telephone call recordings between General Musharraf and his vice chief, you referred to that in your book also.
And surprisingly, I had to make them aware of the importance of that call. Although I got the script from the RAW, the head of RAW at that time, Director RAW, but I had to tell him how important that conversation was and what did it imply. And then everybody woke up. So again, whatever you are saying is right, that the tendency is to pass it up to the political authority and not share as much or share the assessments regularly with the people who have to act on the ground.
True. Now, let me get on to the ground. We are referring to the ground again and again. It was
Your speech is
implemented
gone.
it as successfully. And, you've written at one place that it was after the operational success in Tololing and 0.5140 that our operations gathered the kind of momentum they had. So, what was it that was holding us back earlier? What is it that led to our people galloping to the front? Where was the line drawn? Why was it drawn?
Maroof, firstly, I have to accept the fact that the surveillance along the LOC in that area was weak. We had large gaps between our posts, and we did not have any sophisticated gadgetry which could, for surveillance purposes. Those days, we did not have satellite imagery or aerial photographs even. And of course, there were no drones and radars and things of that nature. So there was a failure on the part of uh, surveillance also. And because of that, we had absolutely no idea where these people were sitting. Today, all the names that you hear, Sololing, 5140, Tiger Hill, 4875, all these areas, at that time, when we started the operations, nobody had an idea where all they were sitting. So it's only gradually that we, as we started confronting them, and there were shootout between our force troops, then only we had no information at all where these people were sitting, and that is why. The other thing is that initially we were using the rules of engagement that we normally use against the militants and terrorists, and as you know yourself, that means one hand tied behind the back. It is only
Absolutely.
after we confirmed, and I kept on insisting that these are not jihadis. These appear to be Pakistan Army people, the way they are behaving on the ground, not vacating the ground, but holding on to the ground, and the kind of artillery support, etc. So that is what made us change the rules of ground, rules of engagement on the ground, and then we pushed forward our patrols to seek the enemy wherever it was. So initially, these operations were delayed. As far as crossing the red line is concerned, obviously, we could never allow them to uh, dominate the road, which was our lifeline. I would say from Srinagar to Kargil, and those days in summer, we were carrying out our stalking in Ladakh also. So that was unacceptable. We had to take very strong action on that account.
Two quick points, sir. One is, why is it that these posts were vacated in the winter months? Because Indian troops are known to be tough. They are known to be able to withstand the challenges of weather. So why is it that a decision, and when was such a decision taken? You must be privy to files in South Block that we should vacate those posts in the winters and go back again in the summers. That seemed like such a Boy Scout option. That's one. And the second, okay, I'll let you answer that, then I'll come to the next questions.
Maroof, you are aware of our military history well. In 1990, we had a division in this sector, and that was pulled out from Kargil and Ladakh sector. And when the militancy started and it became intense in the valley, so decision was taken at that time in Army headquarters to move one of our division, which was in this area, to the valley. Now that created larger gaps between the posts. Between the posts along the LOC, there were gaps from 9 kilometers to almost 40, 45 kilometers at places. And
Right.
the formations were banking that no large scale forces can be inducted in this area, particularly during winter time. Now, as far as the winter vacation is concerned, I have to correct people that there were no vacation of winter posts during that period, in that winter before 98, 99 winters, except for one post, Bajrang post in Kaksal sector, which had to be vacated. Um, there was some issue between the brigade commander and the div commander, and we got to know about it later, and we had to hold a court of inquiry as to what happened and why it happened. But the distances between the posts and the difficulty of patrolling and uh, not being able to spot these movement of the uh, adversary from the helicopters, that is how they managed to infiltrate and occupy some of the vacant mountain tops.
Okay. Now, another point that you've again touched on, and I think it's very important, that all wars are won not only by soldiers on the ground or generals, but also because of getting a favorable international opinion in your favor. And diplomatically, uh, you had mentioned that countries were still in doubt that Pakistan claims of what was happening in Kargil area as compared to our claims, there was still opinion was divided amongst the diplomatic community. Why is it, and here I'm pointing fingers at the MEA, why is it that we were not good enough in getting the world opinion to be in our favor? Is it that America was putting the stops at every stage because the Americans saw Pakistan more as a friend and an ally than India? And I'm sure you would agree that after the Kargil conflict, the opinion in Washington changed in favor of India, and then everything else unfolded after that. So, did we not push enough for ensuring that our point of view, which every country likes to believe it's legitimate, more so in our case, and Pakistan, there are many, as you have brought out in your book, and many of us know, that there are many senior officers and retired officers who began to doubt the line taken by Musharraf and his team. So why is it that we are not able to get enough energy from the international community to support our line?
Maroof, firstly, I must tell you that, I think MEA was as much in dark as we were when the whole operation started. Um, but just to clarify to the not only to international community but even to Pakistanis, we put out a map which had been signed. The line of control had been signed by generals from both sides soon after 71 war. And
The
this
Suchetgarh agreement documents.
exactly. And as you know, it was signed by General Bhagat from our side and one of their lieutenant generals from the other side.
Hamid Khan.
So we put out that we to everybody. We showed it to everybody. Not only that, we also sent a fax copy of that to Pakistan so that they don't start talking about the vague, so-called vague line of control. Now, coming to the MEA's actions, I have to give full credit to the MEA that once we started going after the 24th of May 1999, when we started Operation Vijay, there was total coordination between the not only between our two ministries, but even other ministries. And the full credit must go to the Prime Minister and the CCS, in which every day we used to meet, we used to inform each other of what is happening. And it was a very well coordinated policy that was followed, not only by the MEA but also by the military and other this thing. So I have always given full credit to the manner in which all stakeholders from our side they acted, and that full credit must go to the Prime Minister, who was head of the CCS, and other CCS members.
Okay. Well, again, I believe you're being more generous than you should be, but I'm entitled to having an independent opinion because I'm not part of the establishment. But now there is an issue here in my mind, which I feel needs more clarity. And that is, why is it that there was such a paucity of ammunition and weapon systems? And you made that famous remark, we don't have much, but we'll fight with what we have.
We shall fight with whatever.
Aren't we stocking enough? Don't we have war wastage reserves? Don't we have enough in our plans to sustain a month-long operation? Though I believe the Kargil conflict lasted for 2 months or more. But still, uh, what was the reason we ran into shortages?
Maroof, a few years before Kargil War, um, due to foreign exchange shortages, we were ordered by the government to have only bottom line stockings, which meant holding only 70 to 75%. In fact, there were no purchases made from abroad. And as you know yourself, those days, almost 80% of our weapons and equipment came from abroad. As a result, we were short of weapons and equipment and ammunition. The other thing that happened was that we had raised almost 30 Rashtriya Rifles battalion, and no sanction was given to arm them and equip them. And as a result, we had to denude our regular units, infantry battalions, to pass their mortars, MMGs, and other things like that to the Rashtriya Rifles battalion. So these shortages were acute, and there was a problem on the ground. Ammunition wise, we tried to get some ammunition from abroad. Some people did send us ammunition, but during a wartime, I must say that the international community, they may be your friends also, they tend to exploit you. And quite a bit of that ammunition which came was, in fact, very old ammunition. So we had to take the risk of denuding some of our regular formations, holding formations along the international border to be able to supply whatever was required in Kargil sector,
Yeah,
including
that's true, sir. That's true.
that,
In fact,
that
one of
includes
my, sorry.
that includes Bofors guns also, and that risk had to be taken while we were also preparing ourselves for attack or crossing the international border. We had to be as per our strategy, but we had to take this risk during that period.
Very, very true, sir. In fact, I can have a longer discussion on you on this particular aspect. Some of our defense manufacturing outfits really took the initiative to deliver even without a written order for ammunition.
Yes,
One of them being the Bharat Forge, Baba Kalyani's outfit. And they were told
and
that,
even our ordnance factories also. I must say that they also went into rapid action and produced ammunition at a much faster rate to be able to supply it to us.
right. So now let's move on from there because times are for constraint. Uh, how do we look at the reforms that were to be implemented after Kargil? The Kargil Review Committee talked about it. One of the more visible changes has been the implementation of the position of the CDS. And what we need to understand is, A, why did we take so long to implement that? Were we looking for a favorable candidate to occupy that chair? Or were we looking for the situation where the position would get absorbed in the hierarchy without too much of opposition, because there has been opposition to that position amongst the services, amongst the bureaucracy and the services. So we are still operating in watertight compartments. Or can we say that the situation has changed with the appointment of the CDS?
Maroof, the Kargil Review Committee report had recommended the post of CDS and also uh, structural changes in the Ministry of Defense, which would ensure that the three services have a better jointmanship and we have unified strategies and also combined military doctrines, things of this nature. Unfortunately, due to some differences amongst the political parties, as well as some differences amongst the three services, uh, it took almost 20 years for the government to create the post of CDS. And that was a very long time. And even after that, I believe that the kind of environment and the kind of synergy which we were seeking in the Ministry of Defense has still not taken place. As far as unified commands are concerned, some structural changes have taken place, but we have yet to tackle the theater commands and a doctrine which will help all the three services at the command level, at the theater level, to work together. And I believe many of these recommendations, even when they were accepted in the Ministry of Defense, the spirit behind that of synergy has been not quite there. And sometimes you continue to see the tension between the civil bureaucracy and the military bureaucracy and the military leadership. I think it's time for us to make sure that there are no such differences in policy making, and the military in particular is kept in the loop when it comes to decision making on national security issues. So things have moved very slowly, and as I said, there were reasons from not only from the political authorities but also from the bureaucracy and amongst the military themselves, which have had delayed all the actions which are required to implement the Kargil Review Committee report, not only in action, not only in substance, but also in spirit.
No, I cannot agree more with you, sir. But again, you've given a comprehensive answer without pointing fingers at any one or two instances. But some of us who follow that closely are familiar with it. So I'm not going to bring this up to embarrass anybody. But I think what needs to be understood that the soldier on the ground, he unquestioningly follows orders and puts his life on the line. And others should not be so concerned about their turfs of interest and guarding their areas of influence and importance at the cost of having systemic changes which will only save lives. I mean, you've talked about the number of people that died in action from our end, close to 473, and 1,090 or so were wounded. And it was very, very fierce battles that led to that. We know, those of us who followed with admiration, the courage and grit of middle and junior leadership to go out and climb rock faces and then catch the enemy by his jugular veins. But those stories of valor will keep coming out, and I cannot go into it, but I'm doing another series on gallantry award winners, a handful of them, and talking briefly about their acts of gallantry which defy human imagination. But I'll take this opportunity to thank you again, sir, for your deep insights. I've kept the discussion to the strategic level because I feel my countrymen need to understand these strategic challenges that are there, that were taken up, and we did the best we could and achieved what many other armies couldn't. In fact, I've gone on record to say again that even the Russian army, so well equipped and so strong, they failed to do anything of serious consequence in Ukraine. If they'd taken a leaf or two out of our books on how we fought the campaign in 1971, maybe Russia would have achieved more militarily, whether it was a good thing or not, but they could have achieved more militarily in the Ukraine conflict. If we could do a blitzkrieg in 15 days and they've been stuck there for 2 years, I mean, it just shows the mettle of the Indian soldier and the Indian armed forces. And leadership like yours has done us a lot of good and made us proud. Pakistanis now have begun to question, and Pakistanis do from time to time bring out the foolishness of the operations. But such is the nature of our neighborhood, that we have to live in an area where the military can do no wrong, so the people of Pakistan believe. Your version, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, we have a neighbor where the army they say every country has an army, but in our neighborhood, we have an army which has a country to itself.
True.
And they dominate all the policies. So as long as that situation continues and the Pakistan army continues to protect its status and the privileges that it has acquired over so many years, we continue to have that threat, not only on the border, but also with the kind of terrorism which is going on for such a long time. Now,
True.
before I finish, Maroof, I want to say once again that while planning at the strategic level is important, but what is even more important is the implementation on the ground. And I have to give full credit to our young officers and their battalion commanders, brigade commanders, div commanders, and of course all the soldiers who really implemented whatever was. It's a great. Whenever I remember all their actions, even now I have goosebumps myself. The other thing I want to mention here is that yes, these days the war environment and conflict environment has changed, and there is so much of technology which has come in. And I hope that we will continue to have state of the art technology, weapon systems, etc. But we should never neglect our human resource, our human capital, because I have seen on the ground that human capital are the man behind the gun, and nowadays women also behind the gun. That always will remain more important.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. I think it's been very informative and illuminative. And I hope those who watch it and our military commanders and policymakers more so, who under the rules of engagement of the government of India, we have given so much authority to the bureaucracy, and they tragically have authority but no desire to take decisions. And that leaves us on a tight spot. But thanks for your views. And I'm sure we will see another book from you on the experiences. And I know you've written a number of books. I've been involved with their launches. But there has to be more coming out of people like you who are willing to write and express their views about what soldiering takes and what soldiering requires as from a leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maroof. It's been a pleasure.